Green Captain Twig, because I think the Twig versus Layers matchup in this game, very, very interesting, very, very important as well. In the win up against the Jade Dragons, Layers, in the game 1 loss, Layers went 1-5-3. But then, in the 2 games that the Solar Scarabs won, back-to-back, Game 2, Game 3, 8-0-6 on the Awilix, 12-1-8 on the Gilgamesh. I think Inbound kind of hits the nail on the head in the interview there. This is a team where if you get that consistency dialed up, who knows, right? It feels like sometimes the sky's the limit with this team. When you have a jungler playing that type of way, any team's going to be hard-pressed to play against it. Now, Captain Twig, I think, pretty important in the picks and bans here. Hunbats, Fenrir, Erlang Shen, Robin, Daji, and Gilgamesh. So he's played 6 different picks in the last 6 games. And so I think that makes it a little bit harder for the Solar Scarabs to identify what he's going to go for. Giannis, though, didn't see ban priority all that heavily in our first set of the day, but we'll see ban priority here. Makes sense. Baronic has played that pick pretty well.
Based off Baronic's performance against the Jade Dragons earlier this weekend as well, I think that's also playing a pretty big part as for why the Kings are choosing to strip that God choice. And Gilgamesh as well, no real surprises here. Tiamat Fenrir as a response. Fenrir being a heavily focused pick as of late here, Dolson, and for good reason. Just so much flexibility, like we've talked about, both these teams are capable of. But more importantly, this almost feels like the Kings trying to leverage an Ymir selection choice early on.
That's right. The Ymir was sort of at the forefront of some of the conversation. Where does that priority lie against genetics? Solar Scarabs now a chance to ban that away. The Terra was also very important. That's the type of thing, though, that teams can kind of game plan around. You know that genetics likes one or the other. There's only so much game planning you can do, right? I mean, if a guy on a pick is just playing out of this world, you're always going to be hard-pressed to have any game plan that's airtight enough to eliminate them from priority. Raijin, the final ban here for the Solar Scarabs. So the Kings still some at their disposal here. And I think this is going to be pretty telling where that priority starts to lie. The Awilix takes a little bit out of the jungle pool of Layers. I mentioned that he had a pretty good game on that pick as well. So Layers now down 2 if you count that Gilgamesh.
And not only that, but we have seen some recent switch-ups, at least from Variety, most notably on the Kings, where Variety has actually been taking a lot of these Guardian picks, a lot of very crowd control. I think heavy initiation setup has been the primary focus for the Camelot Kings. On her, I think is just a relatively safe first pick because he's just so open as far as having that CC immunity on the ultimate. The Wheelish ban is what strikes a little bit more odd here because it does lead me to believe that the Camelot Kings certainly feel as though the Hercules presence alongside of Layers with the burst damage potential would have been a little bit too much to handle.
Baba Yaga hovered by the Solar Scarabs here. First and foremost, worth giving Hercules that extra mention. If this goes to Inbound, love the pick for him. It's not going to be the Baba Yaga. Instead, it will be the Ul for Zapman. So Zuler is something that you can kind of put together there, depending on what you pair with that. If it is Hercules Uller, Taco, that is a lot of kill pressure and a lot of control in the duo lane.
Very aggressive, but Terra, I think, going to help mitigate some of that early
game aggression. We got duo
aggression.
lanes locked in.
She does have the potential to try and block that driving strike. We're so familiar to seeing Hercules look for those early blinks, possibly even an early Sunder, just trying to use the Earthbreaker into the driving strike. But Terra, if Genetics has strong placement of those walls, which I think Genetics is more than capable of doing, could cut that driving strike short. So definitely something for the Solar Scarabs to keep in mind. And that large AoE route definitely going to pose some issues for Hercules in terms of initiation potential.
And going back to what I was previously saying, this is not something that I think catches the Solar Scarabs off guard, this Terra picks. We'll see how well they've been able to strategize around a pick that we know Genetics likes to play. Hey, if it is the support Terra, suppose it could still be Variety in the solo lane with that pick if that's the direction that the Kings choose to go here. Taking plenty of time to think this one over. And Osiris instead, so we have a little bit extra data here. So Osiris in the solo lane for Variety. It's been a popular pick.
Not only that, but Lord of the Afterlife being able to prevent Hercules from having that big boon of self-sustain off of his stem, and it's also just, I think, a strong pick in general for harassing the likes of a carry like Ullr, who doesn't have any sort of CC immunity on his ultimate. Have to remember that Lord of the Afterlife rooting in place temporarily could be a strong opportunity for Anhur to follow up with the Desert Fury. That's some good burst damage. Not only that, but Terra as well has a solid opportunity to try and look for a stun lock with her walls.
I like the Hebo pick here for the Solar Scarabs. Granted, I just like the Hebo pick in general because I think it's a lot of fun to watch this pick work. 50% win rate, so a good example of a Hebo game and a bad example of a Hebo game so far here, since he's kind of come back into relevance. Why Hebo? Why now? Have you seen enough in the 2 games that warrants continued pick presence from this god?
Mostly seems as if it might just be a pick strip away from Big Man Kings. Have to remember that Habwa, with the current top 3 that the Kings have opted for, just has a ton of burst follow-up, and I think that that's the primary concern for the Solar Scarabs. Not only that, but Habwa definitely does channel a little bit more as well into just giving the Solar Scarabs, I think, a strong counter-initiation tool.
And I think Baronic then draws a pretty important role here in this game. Counter-initiation and massive damage, ideally, onto Anhur or whoever the Kings end up locking in for their mid laner. Odin has risen to prominence so far this weekend, and that'll draw a ban from the Camelot Kings here alongside a Serket ban on the other side. Daji and Loki both take a seat. Remember, those are a couple of picks, specifically the Daji, that I had mentioned being in the wheelhouse of Captain Twig here as of late. And then Loki, I think, just generally across the league, strong enough at this position to be worthy of taking away. So Captain Twig, through 3 picks here, doesn't have his pick just yet. Anything jump out at you that's still available in the jungle that might be worthwhile?
Maybe a Robin.
Sure.
A Robin choice might not be bad, just because it does introduce a lot of dive to actually further cover up with Osiris whenever you're using that Lord of the Afterlife Mystic Brush as well. Just makes it incredibly difficult, I think, for Hercules and Yamoja to try and peel for the Ullr and the Habwa, but wow. I do like the fact that Scarabs aren't shying away from this Yamoja pick. Have to remember that even with the Terra locked in, Variety showing so much of that Guardian selection favoritism towards the solo lane means that there is a chance that there could have been another Terra flex for him, and Yamoja could have gone towards genetics, but instead it's likely to be the Sobek in solo and Terra for genetics.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of this flexibility, and that means we assumed it might be Hercules for inbound. We were going off the data that we had at the moment. In all likelihood, now becomes Yamoja for inbound, a pick that he hasn't played in his last 6 games. Inbound has actually flexed 6 different gods in his last 6 games. So it looks like Hercules over in the solo lane for SOT. And this is not a pick that SOT shies away from. SOT is the type of guy, he gets an aggressive pick like this, and he looks for those 1v1s. Probably a good thing, then, that the Kings get a little more defensive, whether it's Terra or Sobek, a Guardian that can maybe withstand that.
Because console.
You give yourself discredit. I mean, we've got plenty of console boys, former console boys.
All right, if they win, I get to just claim world champion, full stop.
Calm down. Calm down. Your gambling bets have been a bit weird lately, if I'm honest. Looking at this game, though, between the two, how are you feeling about the compositions in this one, Myth?
I think it's very interesting in that the Camelot Kings have a composition that is much easier to execute on, whereas the Solar Scarabs, their composition in the late game team fight is going to be very interesting. It's about separating the engagement. It's really SOT and Layers acting as that dive, and then Baronic, Zap, and Inbound are going to have to play the back line together. If the Solar Scarabs are successful in separating the engagement into 2v2s and 3v3s, they're going to have a distinct advantage, I think.
Well, 3v2 in the mid lane right now is an early rotation from Solomon Troll.
Yikes.
Trying to punish Twig, but can't find that Earthbreaker there after the driving strike to actually punish him further for that rotation. And that's good abuse, in my opinion, from SOT, though, realizing he's against the Sobek in lane. What's really going to happen there, let's be honest, it's just going to be nothing happening.
Yeah, it doesn't even have the ability to really clear the wave out just yet. Variety,
we're
going to be waiting for a little bit.
Myth. Look at that start right from Sobek too this game. Vamp Shroud start, sustain for days, and then maybe a cheeky power spike later on if he keeps it.
Yeah, it has good physical protection as well, so he doesn't have to worry too much up against SOT. I like this item. I think Vampiric Shroud is going to be a mainstay. I mean, we've seen Guardians out of the solo pretty consistently in a post-Boots world.
Yeah.
Vampiric Shroud seems to be the go-to, but I think a little bit more so interesting Captain Twig's starter item selection, Mannequin Scepter in that first slot. Puts a little bit of a timer on your gameplay. That item falls off pretty hard around level 7, level 8, but until
that's
then...
rotation, sure. He'll put out a ton of damage if he goes for the power build, which it looks like he's doing with that Transcendent start here. but then also the Hebo as well. I mean, Terra's not the easiest target to deal with when it comes to engagements, especially when I look at the fact that, well, the Camelot Kings have drafted a lot of issues. Veronic under pressure here, though. Knocks up 2. Still Twig attached to him. Root from Genex connects, allowing Twig to just get in there and whittle down the health bar of that level 4 Habois. But the casualties paid as Netroid leaps on in to secure a kill from the duel. In 2-0 real quick to the Kings, and Zapman is in no man's land at the moment.
He has to jump out here, but all the abilities already been used up, means that there's really not much the Camelot Kings can do to shut him down, but a 2-0 start, you're feeling pretty good about it. That's just an unfortunate circumstance where the Solar Scarabs are trying to rotate into their own jungle, and, well, the Camelot Kings were already there.
Well, all so far with this game, already a nice lead established for the Kings in terms of experience and form across the map. With these invades coming through, you can start to see these leads start to gather momentum for the Kings here. As Netroid gets aggressive against Zap, Zap doesn't disrespect him by standing in the way, but Netroid took a ton of damage there. Genex still trying to make it worthwhile under the tower, though. Nice use of the walls. He's not going to have enough for the kill, and Netroid not in a position to follow up. Remember, that ultimate's still on cooldown, and that damage coming through from Zap will just force Netroid to give him more respect. A failed gank attempt in the dual lane.
There's that veteranship of Zapman coming into play there. Zapman of 2013 through 2015 steps forward, tries to chase out that kill, tries to find the hail of arrows inbound, starting to make his rotation over, as is Lairs. And, well, Netroid's pretty low HP. Maybe we see a dive here.
And in fairness, I've got to say, like, that was definitely a win for the Scarabs because Zapman did lose his beads, but at the same time, the dual lane lost their relics, and this is why you're seeing the hunt on from Lairs wrapping around the back, blinking on in, looking for the shots onto Netroid. Hasn't found anything yet, but the Bat Out of Hell will secure at least one of the kills on this left-hand side. Should have been 2, though, but Scarabs will be happy with at least 1.
Intelligent play there from inbound. Tanks up the tower for Lairs, creating the space for him to use that blink. Drops the River's Rebuke, just making sure Netroid isn't able to work his way out of there. But now, Captain Twig trying to take a play from the Scarabs book, has a late rotation in the lane, but Scarabs not nearly as low as Netroid was. Not sure he's going to be willing to commit to this one.
Twig rotating into the side of the map now, looking for a pick as he blinks on in towards inbound. Inbound under a lot of pressure, gets the Riptide off, but the tether's still attached to him too. The storm will go through, the Riptide gets him into the air, but the damage follows on through. Beautiful play from Twig on that rotation.
Big man Ting's a little bit late to the party, but maybe seeing if he could get involved. Throws out some of those ice shards, and, well, that's about it from him. Captain Twig able to pick up inbound, who was just trying to strip away that Scorpion inside of the lane. Maybe a slight overstay from the support from the Solar Scares, but gold lead still has remained largely the same. 2,000 at the 8-minute mark is not anything to sneeze at. That's a good amount already, but XP a little bit more important at this point. 2,500, that is a steep hill.
Over the years, we've always talked about gold leads, experience leads, and I think the one thing about mid-season is how much of a lead is too little, how much of a lead is too much in terms of being able to get back in the game. I really feel, my goodness me, let's fight in this dual lane, boys. Zap will escape it out with the Desert Fury weaved. He only needed 2, and he found 2 of, I believe, the 6 or 7 that get thrown there. Nice play from Netroid. And that's because the beads were still on cooldown.
I know when they're coming towards me, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. But it is the Pyromancer started up by the Camelot Kings, and it seems like no one on the Scarabs is privy to it. Maybe it's a rotation of the gold.
It could be a rotation to the gold, but at the moment it's going to be that mid-hard peak up instead, so no gold rotation. And with that sound...
You don't have to believe me. You can believe me maybe as King Variety here, stepping up to the blue buff, having a little bit of fun inside of that soul lane, and SOT tosses up the dance.
SOT dances and goes, wait a second, Twig's here, and he waves at Twig as Twig takes the camp in front of him. Sobek also pulls the blue, but look at the Scarabs on the left-hand side of the map. They were trying to set up for a Gold Fury there if possible, but they won't find it as Solo or Troll is just forced away from the farm. The blue wolf is still alive there. Meanwhile, in the jungle, Netroid's under pressure, but so is Lairs at the same time, and Lairs will survive the sustain from inbound coming through, as well as the pools of health. The Bat Out of Hell comes through to try and secure the kill, but Zapman will get that for himself, and credit there for Bobby in that stun.
Yeah, I think Bobby is playing so well in the Umoja right now. Baronic forced to use the Crushing Wave defensively to escape away from Twig. I've been a detractor of the Bobby Umoja in the past, but he has certainly made strides. And inside that engagement itself, Netroid uses the Disperse to escape. Immediately, Riptide drop, locks off both laners there, and sets up for the double kill. He's looking pretty good so far in this Umoja.
Meanwhile, Netroid on blinking mid lane as Baronic gets baited into an awkward spot. Nothing he could really do with the wrap around the back. And that was Baronic out of mana, just trying to farm up the wave and get the experience before recalling. Ends up being punished by the wraparound from the Kings there.
He made the rotation. Better believe it's going to be a Gold Fury fight.
Should be started up momentarily here, but they do know Scarabs are in the area here. But watching Lairs and Baronic walk back to that back camp, they weren't aware in time. Only inbound is here at the moment. Now the Gold Fury getting very low, and no one's even in range to try and steal this away. Camelot Kings secure the Fury. Nicely timed window from them. On the right-hand side of the map, or at least in equal position. Scarabs are doing a good job of the Warden for my liking right now, and it is giving them good vision of any rotations coming out from Twig. And Twig honestly hasn't rotated too much into gank territory as of yet, but it's actually Scarabs on this Pyro.
And then it is going to go down relatively quickly. Variety blinks in, gets involved, finds Boronic, and goes into the Lurking the Waters. They want to take this chase.
All this is Variety trying to force Boronic to use Relic's abilities if possible, allowing this to collapse. Three-man clap connects. Layers flip back into a dangerous territory towards Big Man Tings. That'll force out the Bat of the Hell. Genex still giving chase. Tanky targets able to whip the storm of these towers, but they won't find a kill or punish them for the Pyromancer being taken. The run along the carpet was immediately neutralized by Twig with that zoomies.
I cannot believe you just said Atlas of the Yellow
Dude,
River.
it's
Genetic finds a little bit of CC on the inbound, who's able to use the engage, or escape rather, to get on out of there. But when you're leaving like that, Camelot Kings are going to go ahead and take the actual objective. Oni Fury, burn it fast.
And meanwhile, the Scarabs have two members on the right-hand side. Will get a tier 1 tower in response, all being well. Unless Twig can slow them down enough. Even Hebo hanging around this right-hand side too to make sure it drops down. The gold is relatively even then with at least an Oni Fury for a tower. It's mainly what those Oni minions can now do, I guess, Myth, across the map.
And it will split up the map pretty well here. That was the OG Sanguine win condition to immediately go to Oni Fury. All right, let's group up. In its target selection, Pyromancer is going to spawn up here, and it's Camelot Kings on the scene first. Slow rotation from the Solar Scarabs. They don't even get to look at it as it falls.
Yeah, that goes down. It's not the worst thing in the world, but now Bobby could be in a bit of trouble. He stays pushed up here, waiting for reinforcements, not realizing Genex is just behind him.
Wow.
He's already dead. Layers commits in on Variety earlier. They're just trying to force the situation, and now instead he's the one in danger, but no further backup available for him. Desert Fury was a little bit late to the party there, so Layers will at least get his Bat out of hell off, but now they're chasing from Twig. Blinks on in, gets a Tether on 3, and Layers should end up dying there to the pluck from Variety. Meanwhile, mid lane, Solar War Troll surrounded, rooted in place almost, but the beads came through as Twig gets himself another kill. The chase is on from the Kings, and one fight has blown it all open. And in fairness, it was Bobby being too far forward there.
He was just so deep inside the engagement. Had full Omi there as well, but decides to dig in his heels, try and stick into his ground and wait for his team to join him. Well, when you're getting crit for 500 at point blank barrel stuff by Netrioid, you're not going to survive very long. You're not going to be able to buy the time for your team to get there. Variety putting some pressure onto Boronic as his team picks up the Fire Giant. Maybe seeing if he can strip away some of these relics, some of these ultimates. But on his own, Sobek not going to pose much of a threat. More so a god you think about with as a facilitator. Fire Giant now on 5 members of the Camelot Kings, and tier 2 towers, they're under duress.
So now we start to look towards the Phoenixes as you giggle to yourself about saying under duress for some reason.
I didn't giggle. I was just right. It was just under duress. It's gone now. It's dead. Separate these engagements and have not had the opportunity to do so yet, but now's the time.
Not been the greatest so far. Build is a bit on the expensive side too, which you can see the difference in the two mid laners in terms of build progression so far as well, with Tings now working towards his final slotted item and already has that relic upgraded. Sorry, the star item upgraded to the next level.
He does. The Pendulum of the Ages selected here for the Camelot Kings mid laner. Solar Scarabs, actually, now that I'm looking at it, with no Phantom selection on the side of Camelot Kings, they could just use that ultimate from the Emoja to try and separate this engagement, and then artificially manufacture 5 versus 2, 5 versus 1 inside their Phoenix.
Just going to be careful for the man who can walk through walls and blink to the backside, looking at the carries. That's Captain Twig right now, giving some separation and allowing his team to take down the left-hand Phoenix. River's Rebuke is dropped down, and the damage is pretty good towards the frontline tanks. Netroid takes out a frontline tank on the other side, though in Scarabs, and now Big Man Tings takes out SOT. Layers is one hit from death, and a pluck from Variety is going to get the kill. And that is now onto the middle Phoenix, or even the game end here. Camelot Kings feel they can close this out in under 25 minutes.
Boronic and Zapman looking up to put up a miracle defense, but Hindu, man, look at that Titan. It's already gone.
It is already gone and down. Scarabs in favor, win the engagement.
Really just felt almost unstoppable by the time this game got into full swing.
Captain Twig, especially on the Osiris, was just all up in Boronic space. Gave this Havwa absolutely zero room to function. And not only that, but Solar Scarabs off to a little bit of a rough start. Zap taking an early spill in that 1v1 matchup, and we did touch on it on the desk, but it's just an incredibly difficult matchup, I think, for the Uller. You're at an inherent disadvantage because of the fact that Honor does have that CC immunity.
Oh, man.
Not Zetman's greatest moments, but it's almost I don't want to say it's inevitable by any means. It's just rather unfortunate there for Zap and for the Scarabs as a whole, because that sort of side lane pressure combined alongside of the pressure that Twig was able to establish in mid and jungle up against the Camazots and the Havois just made things a little bit too difficult. And inbound as well on the Emoja, while he did have some great placements of those Rivers Rebukes, it just felt like he wasn't able to be that aggressive driving force that we've seen whenever the Solar Scarabs have been the most successful.
Right, a driving strike might have done inbound some good there in game number 1, but SOT picked up that pick. The Kings threw us for a bit of a loop because it was a very early lock-in of the Terra, and then we figured and picks and bans for game number 2. But this is like peak Scarabs, isn't it? Where you have a very tough game 1, but then they come out and surprise everyone in game 2. They'll push us on to a game 3. I mean, this is just the script that the Scarabs write. The set they won against the Dragons, against the Dragons. They lost a tough game 1. And then kind of blow them out in games 2 and 3. So this is where the Solar Scarabs like to operate. They need a little pressure, I think, to start to turn around in some of these sets. Sobek will be the first one banned out here. Tough to deal with when Variety's playing that pick. Giannis still over on the other side. I think it probably feels bad if you're Barana because you want to play that pick. In a weird way, like in a gamer like brain kind of way, like a respect ban like that, maybe gives you a little confidence.
It can certainly funnel a little bit more towards that confidence department. It can also just be a little bit more of a grievance because having that kind of mid-lane pressure placed against you. Well, Mifflin loves anything.
Do you like that, Miff? A respect? You won't be able to hear him. They respect ban something against you. You seem like the type of guy that would love... Yeah, makes him play better. Yeah,
makes him play better.
Instead of makes him play better, and that's all we need to hear from
That's interesting. How does Mifflin normally play?
Right, so like from a 0 to a 1 is technically better, right? But
on a scale of 10.
On a scale of 10, right. I mean, it's not a binary thing, good or bad. It's horrible at 0 and then
Mifflin's
incredible at 10.
gameplay is similar to his bets.
Man, this is brutal. Miff is not even able to defend himself here, and we're going in on him. I knew that Miff would, when I said gamer like brain energy, Miff would be the type to love a respect ban against him, even though you can't play one of your favorite picks. It does let you know that the other team is thinking about you. So maybe Baronic has a little bit of that in the back of his head right now. Raijin taken away. Terra is as well. So the Kings will need 2 out of 3 different picks to drive that front line here for themselves. And maybe that's just a total redo of the strategy because I think Sobek has been pretty fun over in the solo lane. So we'll see if it ends up being Guardian, more warrior-centric here. Camelot Kings, though, I think Gilgamesh comes to mind here for the Kings. That's the priority pick, I think, that's still left unbanned.
I would say Fenrir or Gilgamesh would probably be top-tier choices here for the Kings to ban away. Gilgamesh is going to be their option of choice, but that does mean Solar Scarabs could look for the Fenrir for themselves, but with Terra and Sobek having been banned away, I would not be surprised if the Kings choose for an immediate response towards like an Ares or even an Amir. Granted, the support pick can probably wait until a little bit later on in the draft for the Kings. It depends on how comfortable Genetics is really feeling, because it's evident that the Solar Scarabs are definitely taking note of that frontline potential from the Kings.
A perfect 5-5 for Fenrir. No, a half-perfect 5-5 for Fenrir so far in Phase 2 of the SPL. So Fenrir is seeing a lot of play here. Ymir is the pickup. We will hold off on dictating where this one goes because the Kings have shown us now that they can throw some front lines at us later on in the draft. So Ymir as a pick, I think certainly good. If the Solar Scarabs throw something like the Fenrir, say it's at inbound, is that the type of pick you want to see him on here in Game 2?
Wouldn't hate seeing Fenrir for inbound, but there's also the potential that we could still see the Solar Scarabs maybe wanting to prioritize a little bit more. While it might be a squishier composition, Serket, Hercules, definitely still some viable options that could come through here for the Solar Scarabs. And again, it wouldn't really telegraph anything for another assassin or warrior-like pick to be added to the lineup just because of the fact that you still have to factor in SOT in that solo lane role. He can play the Fenrir, he could play a Hercules. Serket might be a little bit more statement piece for either Fenrir or Serket going for inbound or layers, but the Merlin choice almost makes me wonder if Solar Scarabs might even look for a Daji here for layers. Daji, I think, being one of the better gods at just aggressing Merlin and preventing big man Tinks from having any sort of free cast potential would certainly be in the Scarabs' probably primary interest.
It was a quiet game from layers. I did mention, 2-3-2 on the Camazots. At 2/3 of the team's kills ultimately there in Game 1. It felt like, at least in pressure, I think, probably in a similar mindset there. So Layers, I think, getting onto something comfortable, something good like that Daji might be good for the Solar Scarabs. Odin locked in now. Let's throw that one on over to the solo lane here for SOT. Odin has been a pretty big force. It's all ban here in game number 1, has seen priority from the other teams in the league so far here in Phase 2. And then I'll skip right on over the Odin. We'll talk about the Baba Yaga, also a 50% win rate. But Baba has been a lot of fun to watch and seem to be pretty good for the mid laners at player.
Baba just brings a lot of damage, and with the lockdown that Odin and Fenrir are going to be able to potentially provide, that could be an ideal route, or that could be an ideal area for the Baba Yaga in that home sweet home, all that Witch's Brew, just a lot of burst damage to try and actually deal with. And not only that, but I think Baba Yaga, her blast off is a great escape from the likes of an Osiris through that Lord of the Afterlife. If it is Twig piloting this Osiris one more time, he might have a little bit more difficulties actually trying to collapse onto that Baba, as opposed to what we saw happening to Baronic with the Hawa in game 1.
I think Twig looked good on this Osiris in game 1, so anything that you can do to slow that down will always feel good if you're the Solar Scarabs here. Second wave of bans starting to roll through. Cerberus takes a ban, as well as Serket and Fafnir. So the King's still feeling like Inbound is going to need a pick here. I'm trying to remember if in it was early season 7 when Odin was like maybe the priority solo lane pick. I feel like we saw Odin support like once or twice, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, because I think the solo lane play from the Odin, I think, has just been too powerful to put somewhere else. But hey, maybe a little flexibility in the Odin from what we see here. Xing Chen also banned out alongside the Cerberus, so support heavy down the back couple. Although a little flex potential with the Cerberus, the Xing Chen there as well. And then on her one more time here from Netrioid. We already saw a solo kill in game number 1. Let's give him something that can work here in game 2.
Well, knowing Zatman, he's never one to shy away from a 1v1 matchup. If anything, he's constantly seeking it out, and it does seem as though this Fenrir is going to be intended for Inbound on that support role. Definitely a strong look for the Solar Scarabs, and the set as well is interesting dynamic being added into the team comp. Can pose a lot of issues for the Anhur and the Merlins, because while they have their escapes that can be rather effective, on that same note, I think Set probably one of the better gods for just consistently sticking to a carry and winning the 1v1.
Absolutely. The question then becomes, if you look over towards the Kings draft, Ymir, Osiris, Merlin and Anhur, they have some peel back, they have some leaps away if you have to play that way. Tyr loves to get forward and aggressive.
Do it for years and still hasn't made the pro scene, and yet both of them are roasting you when you won a world championship. Bit rude, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous, but you know what? Those have-nots are always going to hate on the haves, and
That's
you know,
right.
I'm kind of a have, so that's how it is.
Talking about having this game, I feel like the Scarabs have a much better draft this time round. I really do like this composition they put together here, Miff, and I really do feel like when it comes to the team fights, it's anyone's game.
It is. It is still a little bit more on a high execution note.
That's
because
true.
The engage, it's largely going to be SOT with maybe a blink cage. You can rely on Inbound to get that single target CC with Ragnarok, but outside of that, it's really about ranged poke.
Love that little scrap between the two. When the health bar gets to that last blip in the solo lane is the only time I'm really getting interested of like, I wonder who's still got abilities up here as we tune into it once again. But in mid lane, Twig is starting to whack away at Baronic, and the question is, what did Baronic go for in terms of first items? And did he get that blast off to escape, or did he go for the potion baron, the brew available to him to help him out in that? But at the moment, it's favorable for the Kings.
It sure is, and that's Captain Twig again trying to utilize that Mannequin Scepter in the early game. That was, what, 3 auto attacks on a Baronic that dropped him just below half HP inside of that one. This is, that's a play you love to see. I know that one. The Fearless to cancel the Bird Bomb from coming through Variety. That is tough timing.
All about the audio cues for me to be able to realize that window, but now with Layers walking in here for a second, Variety realized in time that it could have been under a bit of pressure, so Layers just coming in, getting her level 3, helping out with the Totem Aku, as the dual lane is just a farm fest for the time being. Fenrir and Ymir both in that lane, they both have kill potential.
To get himself where he's going, as he does have that bead selection. I'm keeping my eyes on Inbound right now. I want to see what he does with this Ragnarok in the early.
Pressure on the right side from Layers though, looking towards Variety, who's looking for a Fearless where he can. Still has Lawbringer available though, trying to keep himself out of combat and get a blink off to hold onto that Lawbringer if he can. Sustains off the camp as he's looking to get stunned. Solo or Troll off the mark, and in comes Twig.
That's a double dunk there from Captain Twig. Layers trying his best to get out alive, and that's just good peel from the Camelot Kings. Variety didn't seem like he needed it too much, but nice to keep the Solar Scarabs on their toes.
Really, you know, just surprised how Variety played that. You're worried about him for a long period where you're like, are you going to ult away? Are you going to blink at some point? Instead, he just waited for Twig, and now Twig might find a window on SOT. Tether just falls off, but the sickle will be enough to strike down the solo laner, as well as take away the blue buff on the right-hand side. Kings have claimed the first scalp of the game.
Camelot Kings keeping the pace up against the Solar Scarabs, and now stripping away a little bit more of that farm. Back camps, yeah, that's mine. Other back camps, also mine. Going for the Greater Scorpion as well. They are trying to keep this pace up. They want to spawn these POIs on the map to force the Solar Scarabs to take these engagements inside.
Haven't been the greatest, sure. They took down Valkyries early on, but more work to do for them. As Zapman in the jungle now in an awkward spot. He can't get over that wall, but he will go over that wall instead. And Netroid was waiting. He read the option well, and Twig's there to deliver the killing blow if required, but Netroid will claim that. Twig now leaps away as Inbound gets aggressive. Looks towards Netroid, looking for the Ragnarok. Leaps away. Netroid still under some pressure here, and instead, it's Netroid just throwing those spears into the face of the wolf that jumped on him, and he has been punished.
Man, I like the thought process there from Bobby. He decides to wait out the pre-beads from Netroid, but well, you're not going to survive taking all those auto attacks and the impale to your face. Zapman as well getting caught out. That is clean play from the ADC on the Camelot Kings. And, well, this lead is starting to look a lot like Game 1. We're already looking at 2,007 minutes in.
I will say Anher's got one of the best passives in the game too. With the amount of extra damage he'll do, the more he hits basic attacks. So the longer you hang around him, the more dangerous he's going to be against you. And, you know, the delay, like you said, of the Fenrir ultimate makes a lot of sense. But in doing so, you keep hitting those basics to the face. You're not going to live very long. Layers might not live very long here. Variety has anything to say about it. And it's Baronic now, who was rotating, that may be pinched by 4 members, running him across the map here. And now he's in a lot of trouble, has to beads away. Now it's Layers who came back in to wrap around and support, getting picked off by 4 members. The Kings are starting to rout the Scarabs.
It's just
the Scarabs building their synergy as a whole so far this year, and continuing to grow as Zapman tries to get his camp, but Netroid's here to keep him honest. Meanwhile, it's Twig in the jungle, leaping away from Inbound, who's still giving chase with the Ragnarok. Just hasn't got the pace online to keep going. Genetics, meanwhile, on the back end of this, keeping 2 members of the Scarabs busy, and Layer's getting very low at the tail end. So is Genetics, however, and the body blocks from Twig will prevent Genetics' death. Leaping in his Inbound, but he can't find the basic. It does open the window for Zap to get it, but it costs Bobby his life as Variety makes this rotation. Now Twig still on to Zapman, but a good ricochet bounce to slow down this Osiris jungle and stop him finding the kill onto Zap. Damage check up against Twig there, who now has actually picked up a nice little item for himself. We're reducing the attack speed of the rest of the team with that Witchblade.
Sure is, and take a peek at the stacks from Fenrir here as Layers in a little bit of trouble towards his tier 2. Blink in, burns the beads. Can he pick up the kill? Well, no, Variety's happy stripping away that defensive relic.
He could have got it, but it probably would have cost him his life at the other end. But look, in the jungle, SOT just trying to get his own blue buff, rotate on by 2, and now Variety walks back to this solo lane and goes, thanks very much, boys. I know I didn't get Layers, but I'll take the kill on SOT.
But Inbound and Baronic able to strip away the red buff on the opposite side of the map. Genetics trying to keep them there a little bit longer. Netroid started his rotation and then decides against it instead. Heads on back over with red buff dead already. Not much to fight over on that side of the map, but this gold lead Hindu, 4,000 already, 12 minutes in? Yeah. That's tough.
It's definitely a little bit tough, and the difference is, though, is when it gets to 5k, that's 1,000 gold per player, right? But it's mainly the net worth of where that gold is distributed, which is quite important to me. And if you think about it, it really is 1,000 gold per person for the Camelot Kings. It's poor old Genetics, the classic support situation of everybody else gets gold but me. That's the tail end of that squad.
Yeah, Genetics leaving his lanes alone to farm up a fair bit, but has not fallen behind. Zapman
Bobby's
dead. Spot this out.
Bobby's dead at the same time in the mid lane as the Gold Fury is getting done. Can Zap strip this away with the Suns is the question. Reset by the Kings. Contest is happening. Kings get the Gold Fury. Zap did what he can, but he may just be punished for it. The Desert Fury did a lot of work with that pillar, and Variety claims the kill. Baronic's house will not keep him alive long enough there through all the damage of these auto attackers running through, specifically Captain Twig, as the game is starting to fall further and further into the grasp of the Kings. Just a Zap a level down. as is Inbound in that duo lane. And this is just allowing the Kings to run it down mid to an extent and take this tier 1 tower.
Verona can't step up to defend their 3-level deficit on his own. Big man Tings flickering and aggressive as Layers caught out.
And Layers will get frozen in place, take a bit of damage, jump away to safety. The rest of the Kings following up to get the red buff, and Twig was feeling himself, looking for the all-in onto Layers around the back. Didn't find he was looking for, but did get an Aegis. Zapman, though, an Inbound, combining from the backside, looking towards Netroid, who's beads an Aegis, is keeping him alive, and needs one more auto on Zap. Zap hovers and dunks on down with a slam. He'll die to Twig, though, as the circle connects, as now Big Man Tings looks at 2, up in his face, and Tings happy to fight with that soul gem. Leaping in is there, the Lawbringer from Variety, should be able to pick up the pieces of Inbound, and it's only SOT alive with Layers waiting in the wings. I don't think Layers can really do much about the health bars of the Camelot Kings.
SOT just buying a little bit of time there. Defensive relic is expended, but Variety so fast already. Triple kill for Captain Twig, who gets credit for that one, and Layers fresh out of base. Well, he might just go ahead and go back to it, now down to 50% HP.
Definitely a bit of a feeling of seasoned play here from the Kings compared to that of the Scarabs so far this year. And it starts to run away. I do like the experimentation, the adjustments of compositions here. I don't think the Scarabs composition is bad at all, in my opinion. I think it's very competitive, but it's just not worked out with how well the Kings have played.
Have been putting the pressure on from minute 0.
And this is the thing when you get into your own games at home too, right, Miff? And you're looking at what the compositions are of both teams. Try and stifle, frustrate these late game carries that just want to farm up. Try and put the pressure on in the early game if you've got that advantage and you fall off. Try and abuse the situation of knowing the god matchups, and the Kings have done that very well here.
Scarabs to really put the threat onto this Merlin.
Noid be in the jungle right now, looking to kind of frustrate Twig in a weird way, but Twig will blink away, surprisingly enough. Guess he's worried about how many people are around him. Still has beads, won't consume them yet. 3 members now surround Captain Twig, who is level 16 here, up against Zap, who's also level 16. 4 members are diving Twig on the left-hand side of the map as they lose a Phoenix on the right-hand side. You can see the frustrations with the team if that's the call they're making here at the moment, to go that deep in the jungle for a pick on Twig and lose a Phoenix in the process.
That was 4v1. It took them about 15 seconds. They lose a Phoenix, and Twig legitimately almost killed Layers inside of all of that engagement. Tough loss for the Solar Scares inside of that micro play, but the Camelot Kings going to try their best to try and stop the Solar Scares from getting whatever they can. Tier 2 tower will fall, but the chase is on. Genetics has a tall task ahead of him and realizes he cannot find that wall, so instead, maybe the Camelot Kings still look for the chase. The Solar Scares are getting a little bit greedy here.
They do know the farm they can get, though, but I do think Variety's got a good angle to catch him on the way back to base here. Taking that purple is going to cost him big, but the Fearless off the mark. Lawbringer should connect, however, onto Zapman and juggle him into the air, but the Ringer will prevent the follow-up from the Kings. It's been a weird
tower. We're going to get stripped away here, and no one from the Solar Scarabs willing to step up. Cannot blame them.
So what's your takeaways for this weekend, then, with how this weekend's gone, you know? What are your takeaways that you're looking to see people bring into, week 3 when we come back and see them all next week?
Vampiric Shroud's really good. Baba Yaga has been a standout god. That's a god Aggro's really been singing the praises of, maybe a little bit ahead of his time. But Phoenix Siege, let's see what the Scarabs got.
Let's see. Inbound jumps in, connects with Genetics. Netroid did at least take a bit of poke damage from Layers on the left-hand side. Middle Phoenix only at half health right now. Remember, the right-hand side is already down as Variety juggles Layers into the air, but now Variety surrounded by 4 members, a little bit deep in enemy territory. Scarabs, meanwhile, though, don't want to get focused on that too much because the Phoenix is still alive.
And it's burning down quickly, but it's a reset. They're focusing on the engagement. SOT deep in the back line. Nice cage.
Zapman 1 health from death, though, as Twig secures the kill on the back of that. The ring is down and already consumed. Still, Genetics is alive, as is Twig. But the Phoenix shot came through huge to help out Layers. And, of course, Baronic in tow. 2 for 2 so far. Middle Phoenix still stands. That defense from the Scarabs ended up helping them out a lot. I did say the longer this goes on, the better you feel if you're a Scarabs fan, because you're kind of used to being in this situation.
This is exactly where they flourish, but it is still an 11,000 gold lead, and the Camelot Kings know about it. They want to finish off that Phoenix.
Layer's going to deal with a lot of fire minions on that right-hand side, which does expose it enough in mid to bring down that middle Phoenix here. SOT under a lot of pressure. When he leaps, he's going to be careful of a Fearless.
Good wall
combo to bring him down as he looked to run back to base. The Kings find another kill and fall back to strip some jungle.
Man, that is crispy team play. I love seeing plays like that. Genetics drops the wall just to make sure Variety doesn't push him too far.
Again, because the Camelot Kings took a 16-minute fire giant this game. Will we see the Scarabs get in a position to stop this? I don't think so. 3 members on the left-hand side, but the biggest drogger of the weekend is getting taken right here.
Hey, that's straight out of patch notes. Hey, if they're on fire, Giant, head over to Draugr.
Bobby said it.
Make sure lane's a little bit easier. He said this is the Solar Scarabs buff. We'll see if they can utilize it. Now the towers are going to have a little bit more mitigation and more damage.
What towers do?
Okay, well, the Phoenixes.
What Phoenixes? I mean, only this one that's at half health, and I don't think we'll see the Scarabs get back in time to defend it still. The Phoenix is taking a bit of time here. Minions whacking away, but Phoenix does fall on the right. Left-hand side one is still standing, but I don't think the Kings really care about that. Into the throne room they go. The wall from Genetics gets the frost onto Baronic, forces out the beads and the ultimate too. Kings being patient though, whittling down their health bars, not overcommitting for the Titan just yet. An ultimate consumed by Baronic inbound, and Zatman makes it a lot easier to siege up for the end if they want to.
It does, and now maybe looking for some of these picks here. Solar Scarabs have a good deal of their relics still available to them, but they gotta dig in their heels somewhere. Someone has to step up and stop this
Zatman getting
damage.
1v1 against Twig, forced back to base after losing his health bar, and it opens the window for Big Man Tinks to find the kill on Baronic. Just like set 1 today, the Kings are now doing the same sort of impression as what we saw of the Dragons, trying to take on multiple jewels and claim some more lives. SOT still looking at Twig, and I don't even know who's going to get the kill on him. Mystical may be damned, it won't be enough as Big Man Tinks helps out his jungler to secure the Camelot Kings the victory. And the icing on the cake is killing someone in the fountain. Camelot Kings are going to take this one 2-0 here today, and the disrespect confidence at the end of the game across all their faces as they take out the Scarabs in 2 quick games.
Just had to show
Troll
off.
created so much space for Captain Twig, and again, the side lane dominance just ended up getting the better end of the Scarabs.
Yeah, Netrioid early on made no secret on how he wanted to play this game. We saw a glimmer of it in Game 1, and then here in Game 2, jumps in onto Zatman early, follows it up with a big kill onto inbound a little bit later on, so a double kill early for the On Her. But then it really feels like the front lines start to drive this game. And now it's back-to-back games, Taco, where the triple front line, triple jump in and engage composition, I guess Ymir has to blink his way in, he can't jump on in, but triple front line has been working for the Camelot Kings.
Could you imagine if Ymir actually had a jump?
You know what would be cool? So in Paladins, Inara, one of the characters, can throw a wall underneath, or throw a wall out, similar to Ymir, but you can put cards in her loadout that launches her into the air. That'd be pretty sweet. If you put the wall underneath yourself on Ymir, it like launched you into the air, and then you could choose where you landed. That might be pretty sweet tech, except I would hate that if I were against it, because it would just mean that Ymir
just want to watch the world burn with that suggestion.
Well, Ymir would just be landing on top of me, and I'd be dead every single time I have to walk up to it. But really, triple front line now in back-to-back games for the Kings, and Taco, maybe that's a sneak peek at the right way to play this meta, at least for the Camelot Kings.
At least for the Camelot Kings, yes. It certainly seems as though their emphasis on frontline presence in order to really let their backline prosper certainly working out in their favor. But I really was impressed by Captain Twig on the Osiris. He did a great job, I think, at just playing that heavy distraction factor.
Long today, how the weekend started off with some lengthier sets and then quite the opposite down the stretch. 3-game sets were all we had in the first half of the weekend, and then 2-game sets to round things out here. All started off with the Atlantis Leviathans taking down the Jade Dragons. That was a big one, a 3-game set there. And the Olympus Bolts taking down the Camelot Kings. So Camelot Kings happy to get back to their winning ways. And here's how things are reflected after the games we had this weekend. Leviathans and Bolts up top. No surprise there after the way those teams have been playing. The Jade Dragons have had some tough matchups, starting their climb a little bit up with a win over the Valkyries here today. Camelot Kings, though, Taco, I think top half of the league is where this team is destined to be.
Definitely going to be a fun one, seeing how things pan out for them as time goes on, because they're certainly looking like top contenders for the league right now.
Let's see what we've got in store for us next weekend. This upcoming week, we've got 6 more matchups, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Camelot Kings right back in action on Friday up against the Valhalla Valkyries. So, bounce back chance for the Valkyries, continued momentum chance for the Camelot Kings. The Jade Dragons will look to get their win-loss record right back towards even.